Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for Osteoporosis Canada's cooking demo webinar. Before we begin today's webinar, Osteoporosis Canada acknowledges the land that our offices located in Toronto are on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabeg, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. My name is Tracie Napoli. I'm the Director of Fund Development and MARCOM at Osteoporosis Canada, and I will be your cooking demo host today. So this webinar will provide general information about cooking and food knowledge. It's not intended as individualized healthcare or nutrition advice, but if you have questions about nutrition, consult a physician or registered dietitian. Now, we also want to hear from you during the webinar, so if you have questions or comments related to the webinar, you can enter them by clicking the Q&A icon at the bottom of your screen, or you can also put them in the chat. We'll do our best to answer as many questions as we can during the webinar within the time available. So Osteoporosis Canada now recommends 5 nutrients for bone health and in the prevention and management of osteoporosis. Calcium is one of the key minerals that supports new bone formation and helps maintain strong bones. Vitamin D ensures our bodies can absorb enough calcium and supports muscle function. Protein is necessary to build and repair bone tissue and helps keep muscles strong. Magnesium helps our bodies use vitamin D, which is important for calcium absorption, and vitamin K activates a protein that helps build bone and bind minerals such as calcium to the bone structure. So keep checking back to the Osteoporosis Canada website, osteoporosis.ca. Be sure to subscribe to the National e-newsletter if you don't already, so that you can be the first to get new information and updates on tools and resources. So we want to talk a little bit about beans. One of our featured recipes today is a mixed bean salad, and we love using different types of beans. But what we wanted to show is that they're not all equal, and that's why it's great to have a variety of different foods in your diet. And that just to give an example of what the nutrients are in what we're going to be making today. So we use a lot of chickpeas in our recipes, and we love them because they have calcium, protein, and magnesium per serving. You can see what the breakdown is. Not all beans and not all foods will have all 5 nutrients that we talked about. So again, that's why it's good to mix things up and have a variety of different foods in your diet. Red kidney beans have calcium, protein, vitamin K, and magnesium. And black beans have calcium, protein, vitamin K, and magnesium as well. Green beans, fresh green beans, frozen green beans, have calcium. They also have vitamin D, protein, and magnesium. Now, the unit of measure, I'm just going to point it out, for vitamin D and vitamin K, that's a microgram. So for the green beans, 29 milligrams of calcium, 10.60 micrograms for vitamin D, and 1.25 grams of protein, along with 12 milligrams of magnesium for a 1/4 cup serving. So those are the units of measure. You can read them across, but you can also use the nutrient calculator on the Osteoporosis Canada website, where you can put all different kinds of foods that you're eating to find out the nutrient breakdown of those foods. And of course, all amounts of nutrients contribute to your daily intake. Today, we have 2 recipes. We wanted to do something that features summer salads and sides. So we've got a mixed bean salad with 100 milligrams of calcium, 11 grams of protein, 21.5 micrograms of vitamin K, and 50 milligrams of magnesium per serving. And then a delicious herbed Greek yogurt spread, 50 milligrams of calcium, 4 grams of protein, and 9.5 micrograms of vitamin K per serving as well. And we're going to show you how to easily get these 2 recipes made and also how delicious they are. But now it's my pleasure to welcome our friend, Emily Richards, who's a professional home economist, freelance food writer, chef, and she's the author and co-author of 11 fabulous cookbooks. Emily also writes and develops recipes for print and online publications that include everyday cooking and healthy eating. And she can be found on TV, radio, and webcasts, just like this one. So, hi, Emily, welcome.
Hey,
Hi,
thanks for
and you know
having
what?
me.
Isn't it great, fabulous, Emily? But before we start, we just want to acknowledge and thank everyone for their understanding. Yesterday here in Toronto, we had torrential downpours, which resulted in a lot of power outages, and we had some issues. So we actually had to reschedule yesterday's webinar to today. So we appreciate those that could make it. Of course, it'll be recorded and will be available on OC Replay. But Emily, what's the idea with summer salads and sides?
You know what? It's summertime, and today the sun is shining. There's no more rain, which is awesome, which makes me think of those fresh flavors, fresh herbs, fresh garden vegetables, and perfect for starters and sides. So that's what we're going to make today. And I'm excited because I get to eat everything.
I know we're going to all have to make it at home, okay, everyone, because we're not going to be able to do that. So, two things before we hand it over to Emily. As always, if you're on by the end of the webinar, you could win an unbreakable apron. So I will draw a name and announce that at the end of the webinar. Emily is modeling it for us today. And I lost my second thought. So we're just going to go. I literally kind of lost that second thought. We're good.
If they have questions, is that what you were going to
Yes,
say?
thank
If
you.
anyone has
Yes, if
questions?
you have questions, but also actually, I just remembered we want to know where you're from. Tell us what province, what city. Oh, June just said, what a beautiful basil plant, Emily. Isn't it gorgeous? And the smell is so wonderful using fresh herbs like that. So let us know where you're at, where you're calling from. I know we have some people who are not, outside of the country. We love it when we have people that register from everywhere. So I'll kind of share that as we go along, but Emily, take it away.
Awesome, thank you. And I know this basil plant, I'm going to tell you so I have basil outside and it's doing fairly well. But I use so much basil in the summer that I just can't keep it in the house, in the garden. So I actually was picking up a few groceries yesterday, and at the grocery store, this beautiful plant was $6. So I had to pick it up because those little containers at the grocery store, they're like $3. So this is going to be perfect because I can't wait to make pesto. We're going to use some today in the salad as well as the spread. So I'm very proud of this purchase. I'm going to make it last as long as I can. And it's perfect fresh garden herbs. I do have right now, the thyme is doing really well. Rosemary is fresh mint. Oh, fresh mint. Everywhere. Mojitos for everyone. And oregano and sage, and of course, basil and chive. So these are all perfect if you have them available in your garden right now. Absolutely wonderful. Some you'll use less than the ones we're going to be using, the more delicate ones. And fresh green beans. Right now in Ontario, fresh green beans are at the markets. If you're growing them, picking them off and just kind of eating them raw is fabulous. But we're actually going to cook them for our recipe today. We're going to blanch them, which is a word that gets thrown around often when it comes to any type of bean, really, fresh bean. And so we're going to do that. So we're going to basically start with our salad first, and then we're going to move on to the spread. And as Tracie said, I'll say it again, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. But also, if you have any suggestions of how you like to make your bean salad, because this is something that everybody has a recipe for, but it's always nice to revisit it and see kind of how other people are making it and the combinations. And in our case, we're using different beans for different textures, different flavors, and obviously different colors, which is really big. So these green beans that we have here, and this is always one that people ask, how do I trim them? And it's really up to you. So it's tips and tails is kind of the reference to it, or tops and tails. So this is where the bean hangs from, okay, that little stem here. And that's really all I trim off, unless the tail end is bruised or it's been kind of cut off or anything like that. I leave that little tail on. I think it always looks quite pretty. So I just take a little paring knife. You can do this with your fingers too and just snap it off. And if they have no stem on them, you could just cook the whole bean. There's nothing wrong with it at all. I actually have friends that love cooking the little bits of the string part because as you blanch it or cook it, it softens. So, but we are going to trim them for this, and we are going to. There's a couple ways you can do this here. So it's totally up to you. But in the recipe, we've called to chop these and then blanch them. It kind of speeds things up a little bit, but if you're more comfortable blanching these whole, maybe you have a whole basket of green beans that you just want to blanch off because you're going to freeze them. Because yes, you can freeze them when blanched. And then you can chop them later. So that's totally up to you. So what I'm going to do is chop them first and then blanch them. So this is 8 ounces or half a pound of green beans and bite-sized pieces. So this is always what gets me when I say bite-sized pieces or we see that in a recipe. It's like, who's biting it? Is it a big bite? Is it a little bite? Here's what I do. Because this bean salad has basically similar size pieces in it, stick with that as your bite-sized pieces so that this is something my husband does all the time, especially with bean salads. He uses a spoon or his shovel, as he likes to call it, and scoops it up and eats it. So everything will fit in that spoon. So you can think about it that way as well. You could have it larger if you wanted to and have different textures, but I'm going to stick with kind of a smaller, I don't know, maybe half an inch or 1 inch piece. And I'm not really worried about being too exact here. This one I need to actually cut up. And I have some simmering water in my saucepan that I'm just going to add these to. So you can do this for snow peas, you can do this for flat beans, and you could use either of those in this recipe too, by the way. And what we want to do here is just kind of cook these a little bit. We want the texture, we want them a little bit crunchy, but not raw. We want to have that nice cooked texture to them. So blanching, usually 2 to 3 minutes typically, but because we want this in the same bowl with all our other beans, we're going to cook it a couple minutes longer, so about 5 or 6 minutes. Now, depending on how thick your green beans are, it might take that 6 minutes. If you have those really fine French beans that are very thin, this might only take 2 or 3 minutes, okay? And what you'll notice is that there's a color change. They tend to get a little deeper green color when they're cooking. And then you can always just take one out, not with your hands, take one out and taste it and just taste the texture of it because that's really what you're looking for. I'm not adding any salt to this. It's just boiling water. We don't need to season it at this point because we're going to be adding it with all our other beans. I'm going to leave that for a couple minutes. And we're going to go to our other beans, which are canned beans. And this is, I always think this is a great budget-friendly salad, especially for the summer. It's great for potlucks or a family gathering. And the other thing is that it's a make-ahead, but I like to store my pantry with canned beans of any shape, size, especially when they're on sale. I don't know. Do you remember when canned beans were like 69 cents a can? I know that you probably can't find them for that price, but maybe 99 cents. So it's a great kind of pantry stocking stuffer, pantry stuffer, if you will, to have on hand and to create these types of dishes. So I already drained and rinsed my black beans and red kidney beans. So I left my 1 can here. I didn't think you needed to see me open 3 cans of beans, but there are 3 cans in here. So yes, this is a fairly large bean salad recipe, but it's really about the convenience of having it made and in the fridge so that its versatility comes through. So I'm just going to take this and drain it in my sieve in the sink, okay? And I am going to rinse this as well. These are 19-ounce cans. So they're about 2 cups of beans in each can. So if you were cooking your own beans, and you can definitely do that, just measure out about 2 cups of each so that you have the right amount of beans. Now, if you don't want to use all 3 types of beans, you can for sure use all of one. You could use, they have a 6-bean mix or the mixed bean cans. And what will change is everything that Tracie talked about. So all that information about calcium and protein, that's where things change a little bit. But texturally, I went with beans that are a little bit more firm because they can sit a little bit longer in the refrigerator. So you notice I didn't use lentils because they're fairly soft as a canned bean. And Romano beans is another example of a softer bean. So here I really want the texture of the bean to shine through, Okay, so these are perfect and good to go. So I'm going to drain these as well. And you know what? I can actually put them in the same sieve, but I don't want to heat up my chickpeas. So I'm just going to put those into my bowl with the other beans here. And then I'll just use the same sieve to do my green beans. Okay. Now, for those of you that are worried about or thinking about sodium content in canned beans, rinsing them helps, but you can also look for sodium reduced or no salt added canned beans. So there's that available too. And you just have to find them in the grocery store. They're not always on the same shelf. Sometimes they're a little bit higher up. So I know when I was at the grocery store again yesterday, someone couldn't reach them. So I helped her out and grabbed them for her. And they can be smaller cans sometimes. So just make sure that you take note of that. All right. So here are my green beans. Now, you know what the bonus is? You can do this ahead of time. So remember, you have that basket of green beans that you're going to blanch off because you might want to freeze some for later, or you might make a different side dish with them. So you can blanch them, let them chill. I rinse them under cold water, and then you can leave them in the fridge so that if you're making the salad later in the week, you can just measure out what you need and then add them. And by the way, when it comes to this part here, we're calling for cans, and this is half a pound, which is about 2 cups of the green beans chopped. If you have frozen beans, totally use them. Okay, you can thaw them, blanch them again in some boiling water, and then rinse them under water and add them. Okay, so there's lots of options here. Don't think that you have to make this right now because green beans are in season. You can definitely make it year round. All right, so I'm going to add those in here too and set this aside. Now, I don't want to ignore Tracie, but do we have any questions? Because I don't want to go too fast because I know this is a pretty easy recipe.
Well, I was gonna comment, and normally we can see Emily when she goes to the sink, but that big, beautiful basil, we can still see you, but you were kind of talking out, like leaning back a little bit. It was pretty funny, but yeah,
it is literally bigger than my head. So
I was like, that is, and you know what?
A great deal, don't you think?
A good purchase.
Oh,
You can
100%,
use
right?
it for, I used basil in my eggs this morning. It just makes all the difference. So
Oh, it's
delicious.
like, I honestly, like, you could
That's
take a
summer
leaf.
right there. That's summer.
I remember my grandmother would go into the garden and she'd take a leaf and she'd do this like all over. And you smell the meat. Then, you know, I'd go, no, why do you smell so great? She'd take the basil and rub it all over me. I also think it may help with bugs, but I don't know. It was.
We're not, I would, yeah, don't take our word for that, definitely. But no, you know what? Let's just take a look at where we've got some of our friends today. We've got people from Vancouver, BC, and Toronto, Toronto and Oakville, Ontario, yes, and Winnipeg. Vermilion Bay, Ontario. I'm going to be honest, no idea. I've never heard of Vermilion Bay. Do you know where that is, Emily?
I don't, but now I really want to know.
I know. I love it when we find a place and I'm like, did not know about that place.
Because these are places that it would be nice to go and visit.
I know, and Waterloo as well. And somebody gave a hint. So when they clean off the tips and the tails of their beans, they use kitchen shears. They said it just goes so quickly.
Yeah, especially if you have a lot to do, right? Like that's important. If you're doing a lot, you want to be efficient. If it's a lot,
exactly. Oh, and we've got Gabriola Island, BC. Thank you for telling me it's near Nanaimo. I would not have known that.
I know Gabriola Island. I've only ever met one person from Gabriola Island. And
do you know Ruby? It's Ruby.
No, I know Sue. Her name is Sue, and she moved out to Gabriola Island from Jasper, Alberta.
Oh my gosh.
So that's who I know.
There we go. So listen, we love it. We love that we're getting, we've got so many people that are online. I just want to say about the salad. So this was our thinking about these 2 recipes today, because we listen to you. We hear you when you tell us stuff. A lot of people go, I don't like to cook. I get expired. I think maybe I'll make it. But there's 2 things. So if you don't love to cook, this is really to prepare and you leave it in the refrigerator. That is why these are 2 great recipes, and you can add them with other foods. you can eat them kind of like, you know, if you just wanted like on a bagel with the spread we're going to be making, or just eat the salad on its own, but it would be great as a side. So the thing is, you're not making like just a little bit, you're making enough, but it also tastes better after it sits. And this is such a versatile recipe for each of them, because you can switch it up. So like Emily said, if you don't like black beans and you want more chickpeas, or they're on sale, or you want to make half, like, you can do it. Read the label on the can. That's it. It tells you exactly what the nutrients you are going to get, but knowing that you're going to get the beans, you're going to get something in there. So this is really something that, you know, you want to make for you. But I think, you know, because somebody did say, well, that's a lot of bean salad if it's only like two people. It actually will taste better the next day.
It will.
And in the summer too, when it's really hot, if you're having, like, we've got a lot of humidity now here today, where I am, it's something where you don't have to really turn the oven on. You just blanch some green beans. And if you don't want green beans, like, I like fresh cut bell peppers in mine because I love that crunchiness. And so just to kind of give you guys like some information on that, I'm just checking the quick Q. Oh, in Montreal. Oh, there's a question on the green beans. How long
Yeah.
can you freeze the blanched green beans for?
So I've kept them in the freezer for like it ranged. I said that I think the longest I've kept them in is about 6 months. So, and I'm not using them when they come out, I'm using them as a side dish. So I saute them with garlic and add some fresh herbs and serve it as a side dish. Or if you love a green bean casserole, that's perfect to use them. So think of it as using any frozen green bean that you would buy, because those are blanched. That's why they freeze so well. So any place that you would typically use a frozen green bean, that's where you would use them. So 6 months is where I've had success, because the other thing that happens is that the texture and the flavor
Yeah.
changes, right? So those it's a cell that bursts, and then the texture sometimes they get a little bit mushy. So I've been successful up to 6 months, and I'll be honest, I haven't exceeded that. But I know sometimes when I say 6 months, other people think it's a year. So let us know if you keep it longer.
Well, I have, and it wasn't great. So I'm just going to share that with you. But it
The
depends.
honesty is important,
It's
Tracie. The
not, yeah,
honesty is
exactly.
important.
I'm notorious for leaving stuff in the freezer for like a year and going, it's still good. And it's not always, but it depends how you store it, what kind
Yes.
of freezer you have. Like, these are all, you know, your kitchen, right? But this is like, especially when they're in season and such a great price. Like, and if you can afford the space, I know not everyone has the option of having maybe a bigger freezer or pantry or whatever it is that you're going to buy. Um, those are the ways that you can help be budget friendly, so
Yes.
that you get all these, you know, really great foods to eat that are good for you all throughout the year.
And one
Um,
of the things, if you
yeah,
are kind of thinking about, and not just for green beans, obviously other in season fruits for freezing, I made a purchase many years ago of a food saver, a vac sealer. So it's just, for home use. And that saves for meat,
yeah.
vegetables. So blanching things and then putting them in the bag and vac sealing them. When you take them out, the freshness it's
I will
great.
say I tried one. It was night and day, because it's the air
Yes.
that will cause freezer burn, or, you know, you get all those other flavors.
Yeah.
So maybe you get a friend,
Yes. Or if
someone
you
to
have
help.
like a birthday coming up, maybe,
Yeah.
and people don't know what to get you,
And we are
get them
not
to
in any
pull
way
together.
partnered with anyone, but
No,
I'm just
no,
sharing
not at
that.
all.
But it was
I think
shocking the
it's great.
difference.
And it's also a space saver because
Yeah,
everything back, it just flattens
exactly.
everything.
Yep, exactly. So really quickly before we go back to Emily, so Anne shared that Vermilion Bay is, she goes, I think it's around Kenora, so maybe she's not from there.
Oh,
And then we've got somebody from Calgary as well.
oh,
I'm
awesome.
not, we had somebody ask, and I'm not familiar about this, but it's sprouted beans. Do you know anything, Emily, about that you
Yep.
can
You
talk
can,
to?
yeah, so that sprouted beans, and you can do a variety of really any bean and soak them. And over a few days, they'll start to sprout. And the flavor is really nice. I like the texture. I've used mung beans as kind of the sprouted bean that I've probably used the most because it happens the quickest. And for those of you that are thinking that sounds familiar, that's usually the bean that, remember kids going to school and they sprouted the beans in paper towel as one of their little experiments. That's the bean. It's mung bean. Because it sprouts so fairly quickly. But you can do that with any dry bean. So soaking it in water. I usually change the water every day. And then in a salad, it's great because it almost has a little bit, to me, it has a little bit of a fermented flavor to it. But it's just because, as we know, you need that seed to start growing it. So it's that little bit of stem. And then if you leave it a little bit longer, you'll start to see some of the green leaves coming out. So it's quite nice. And you could definitely use that in the recipe. That would be lovely. And really, it's what you have in the fridge. So Tracie mentioned peppers. We are going to add peppers, but if you had 2 peppers and no green beans, add 2 peppers. I'm adding a yellow pepper. So this is just chopped up. And again, you'll see that everything is kind of the same size. So whether you're eating with a fork or a spoon, it'll work well. And I grated a carrot, but you could chop up a carrot if you wanted. And if you don't feel like grating your carrot, you could buy shredded carrots because you know what, you can now. So and you can add some shredded carrot here. If you had, I know, guess what else is in the garden right now? Zucchini, lots of it. So you could thinly slice some zucchini and add that in here raw. You could blanch it if you wanted to as well. But because you might want this to sit in the fridge for a couple of days, having it raw in the salad will be nice because it'll get a little bit of a pickled flavor. And if you have not had pickled zucchini, you are missing out because it's absolutely delicious. I'm also adding some celery because that's going to give us a nice little crunch. But if you had fennel, that would be lovely in here. That'd give it that light licorice flavor. If you had, you know what, some roasted red peppers, leftover roasted vegetables, you could really change this up. Now, remember, those vegetables are going to be softer, so the texture will be a little bit different. Here, because we're using kind of all crunchy vegetables, it sits nicely and keeps that crunch over a few days in the fridge. So that's basically the salad. I'm just going to set it there for a minute because we're going to make the dressing as well. And this is where some of you that are thinking, okay, Emily, that's like 12 cups of salad. I don't need 12 cups of salad. That's fine. You don't have to make 12 cups of salad. But what you can do is make this salad dressing, the vinaigrette for the salad, and then just add a little bit each time you want to make some salad. Okay. So this is a nice kind of all-purpose salad dressing that we're making here. I'm using extra virgin olive oil because I like that flavor, but you could use a neutral oil here. So something a bit more mild, and it will kind of take on the flavor of everything else because we are using those wonderful herbs in here as well. And then I'm going to use some red wine vinegar. I love red wine vinegar, but if it's a little too acidic for you, you could use a rice wine vinegar here. Apple cider vinegar would be lovely. If you have a fancier vinegar that you want to use, like a champagne vinegar, please feel free to use it because it will be absolutely delicious. Then we're going to give it a little bit of a kick. We're going to add some Dijon mustard. Now, if you want a little bit more texture to this, I always say that grainy mustard is perfect. Okay. My daughter loves making, it's a poppy seed salad dressing, but she doesn't like poppy seeds. So we use grainy mustard in it to give it that little bit of pop. And it works really, really nicely. And then a little touch of sweetness is some maple syrup. Okay. And if you don't have maple syrup, you can use a little bit of honey. You could also use a little pinch of sugar in there too. And then of course, I'm just seasoning it with a little bit of salt and pepper. Now, if you want to hold off on the salt, you totally can do that as well. I know often when we think of sodium, we think, well, you know, I'm just trying to look out, I want to cut my salt. You totally can do that. And then replace it with, in this case, more fresh herbs, because that's really going to help bring the flavor out. A little bit of lemon zest will also be wonderful. Okay, so this is our vinaigrette. So this, if you want, you can make this separately, and then you can use less of the salad ingredients. Okay. And then just mix it up. Now, obviously, we talked about how this salad sits really nicely and the flavors come together really well. So in that case, if you're making it a little bit at a time, maybe just let it sit in the fridge for a couple of hours before you eat it if you get a chance. Okay. So all of our dressing goes on here. Vinaigrette's going to go in there. And then before I stir it, I'm just going to set it here because I want to cut some basil. Okay, so this beautiful basil, I picked some nice big leaves here, and I'm just going to give it a nice little chop. So you can add this right before you want to serve it, or you can add it as you make it and let it sit in the fridge. You can also change, we talked about all those fresh herbs in the garden. This is beautiful with a combination of herbs. So mint, cilantro would be fabulous. A little bit just plain old parsley. It does the trick because it has that nice fresh flavor to it. Okay. But I'm adding, and you know what? I think in the recipe, what did I call for? A third cup. If you had half a cup, it's totally okay. Okay. It's not going to, when it comes to fresh herbs, I love adding more just because I love the flavor of it. Okay. So I'm not going to let this sit too long, but I'm going to set it aside and I'll taste it after we make the herbed yogurt spread. Okay. So there, that's going to sit here. You're just going to have to stare at it for a little while. And I'm going to get more of those herbs have to go in there. I'm going to get the drained yogurt out of the fridge. So that we can make this herbed Greek yogurt spread. Okay. And this one's even easier than the salad. So sometimes you want a little kind of summer starter, or someone says, bring an appy as you're getting together, something to have. And this is great because it's not only a little appetizer, but it's just a great kind of snack, and it has so many ways to use it. Okay. So this is my plain Greek yogurt in this lovely little strainer. And you'll notice that there's liquid in here. So this is Greek yogurt, yes, which is already thick. However, I want it even thicker. So think of this as we're trying to replace cream cheese as our spread. And we want something nice and thick that will have a lot of body to it. So I'm going to, now as I dump this, you'll see what I'm going to do here, because I also put in a coffee filter. Okay. So this I put in here just in case for anyone who doesn't have a sieve that has small holes in it, line it with a filter, a coffee filter, a cheesecloth if you have it, so that it'll drain through and you won't lose any of the yogurt itself. Okay. So what are you going to do with this whey, or kind of curds and whey, if you will? This you can keep, you can freeze it if you want, anywhere that if you're making bread, you could use that. Okay. Some people pour it in a glass, put it in a smoothie. So there's lots of options that you can use that. I use it in bread in place of water. So it's a great little way to kind of reduce kitchen and food waste. So here, look at how nice and thick this is. Okay. So it's got a beautiful smooth texture. And this is a higher protein yogurt. So what that means is that, guess what? It's even better for me because it has some added protein in there, which is always fabulous. All right. So here's where the flavor comes in. I'm going to add a little bit of garlic powder. You could use onion powder. You could use a seasoning if you want, if you have any favorite seasonings. I'm going to add just a smidge of sugar as well, just to kind of balance out the acidity of the yogurt, and a little bit of salt and pepper. Okay. So there's the kind of seasoning part. Here's our fresh herb part. And this is, again, how you want to kind of the flavor, what flavor you want to be more pronounced. So I have some beautiful fresh dill, and I have some parsley, and I'm going to sneak some more of this basil, I think, too. So I'm just going to chop it up. Now, what I love about this spread is that versatility of it. So let's say I'm just having bagels and cream cheese in the morning. You can totally use this. So if you are invited to a friend's, maybe you're going to a friend's cottage, or maybe you're going to a cottage, or you're camping somewhere and you want to bring something a little different, or something that you could use in different ways, this would be a great addition. So I'm just chopping up, that's the dill, the parsley. I'm going to take some of these bigger leaves of basil here, and I'm just going to give them a little smack and chop, and they're going to go in here too. If you love a little bit of citrus, some lemon zest in here would be beautiful. Okay, you could use some fresh garlic if you wanted to as well, instead of the garlic powder. I find that because I want this to sit in the fridge a little bit, that the garlic powder sits a little bit more mildly than fresh garlic, but if you use a small clove of garlic, you won't run into that problem. So I'm going to just stir this together, and you'll see like it's thick. So you really have to stir things around here. If you wanted to, this is also great with chips, by the way. Aside from the fact that this has got, it's high protein yogurt, it's great with as chips and dip. So if you wanted to, you could add a little bit of cheddar cheese in here as well and make it a little bit more heartier spread. Okay. But we're going to make these a little bit fancy. Well, not a little bit fancy. We're having guests come over. So we want this to look nice. This in the fridge easily, as long as the yogurt is good for, essentially. But it's also the fresh herbs. You want them to still have that nice fresh herby flavor. So I'm going to kind of put this into my little dip bowl here and spread it out. And here's the option. So you can serve it like this with carrots and celery, cucumbers. This could be with some flatbread or pita crisps, whatever you like. But you can also add more things to it. So I'm just going to kind of spread it out flat, because the flatter this is, the more surface area there is to put things on top of. So I was telling Tracie, we'll sprinkle some more fresh herbs on top here because I have them on the board. I had to make some caramelized onions yesterday, and these are fabulous to keep and freeze and have on hand. So you can take some of those and just put those all on top. Because remember, whatever you're serving with them, everyone's going to get a little bit of this as well, which is nice. So that's going to add a nice little bit of sweetness. And then I also have some roasted red peppers. So that's going to be a great combination to garnish it and also add a little bit more veggies to it, which is kind of nice. And these are my homemade roasted red peppers. So they don't have anything on them. They're just literally peppers that have been roasted. Okay. And then I just kind of cut them up into little pieces like that. And then you can serve them up with, again, crisps, veggies, whatever you like, so that you have that really nice option. Okay, so there's our little bit of our dip. And I did, you know what, because I want to taste this because I love it so much. I did grab a few little pita crisps that I had. And then I'm going to put this into this lovely little bowl so that you can see how beautiful it looks when you go to serve it. Just like that. And Tracie and I were talking about having this in the fridge and then, pulling it out to make different things. So you can enjoy this as is, right? You have a barbecue, you're doing chicken or salmon and enjoying a lovely side dish. But you can also have this on its own for lunch the next day or the day after with a little bit of tuna. Or let's say you have some of that leftover grilled salmon and you break it up and stir it into the bean salad. If you have some vegan friends or vegetarian friends that love grilled tofu, cut it up, and then you can add that in here as well and have that as part of a little bit more protein in there. What I like to do, and I'm just going to grab I'll just use one of these little bowls that I have here. I like to, and this I do when I don't have any, we have friends and family that have dairy intolerances, but when we don't have them, or you can just put this off to the side. I have a little bit of feta. You could use goat cheese if you wanted, and then just sprinkle some of that on top as well. And that just adds, guess what? A little bit of calcium to our salad, and also some great flavor to it as well. So you could use a little bit of cubed smoked cheddar or Gouda. Would be really nice too, and add that to the bean salad. So there's plenty of options to kind of create your own version of the bean salad. Don't you think, Tracie?
Yes, I do. I love the salad. And that's, when we were doing these recipes, it was really all about ease and preference. I want to talk about the yogurt for a second because, a lot of people go, well, I don't want to do that recipe because I have to go buy all these new ingredients. And then you're never sure if you're going to end up using them again. When you buy Greek yogurt plain, you can use it in your smoothie. You can eat it on its own. You can make any kind of savory sauce if you're going to be doing another recipe, or you can make this dip. So you're using that one ingredient in like a multitude of different ways. And what Emily showed us, you can change the flavor profiles really easily. And that's salad. So June wrote and said to us, this is truly eating the rainbow. I mean, it's honestly, you eat with your eyes. How beautiful is that salad? That is great. Oh, somebody just asked, can you make the dip half cream cheese and half yogurt?
Yes, you totally can. I would still, in that case, you don't necessarily have to drain the yogurt. So if it's a time constraint thing, you can just add the Greek yogurt to the cream cheese because it will give you that body. But what you will notice is that the next day, that little bit of water will leach out of the yogurt. So that's what this is kind of preventing, so that you can keep it in the fridge and there's not as much water that comes out of the yogurt itself. So Greek yogurt is very thick and wonderful, but if you're not eating it right away, and you'll know as soon as you scoop it out, it starts to separate a little bit. And that's okay. You just stir it back up. And you would do the same thing with the dip. So yes, in long and short, yes, you can totally do that.
Yes. Yes, you can do that. And you can kind of play around with it to see like what kind of flavors you like. So Emily, because we did forget once and then we don't want to forget again, you have to do the taste test.
Oh, and yes, of course I do.
You do the taste test. So you can get these recipes. I'm just going to say, you know, we're going to send them out. Oh, look, somebody there can take.
So I was just going to say, my husband just got home from work. And remember I was telling you, he's the one that eats the salad with a spoon. So I thought he could have this first bowl.
Shovel.
Yeah, I told him that he used it as a shovel. Here, do you want to try
there we go.
I'll get another bowl and
I'll enjoy. He's going to have to make all the yummy noises now.
You won't hear his yummy noises.
Okay.
Eating with a fork.
I'm eating it with a fork. No, he likes it with a spoon.
Oh, there we go.
It doesn't fall off.
It doesn't fall off the spoon. See, that's why it's good to eat with the spoon. That's great. Oh my God, how yummy. So we're going to do one more, Roy, let's do one more overhead shot and just show how beautiful like these recipes are.
And I mean, I use a yellow pepper. You could use red, orange, whatever. So it all works out.
It all works out. And again, then, you know, for those that don't want to cook as much, you can, you know, have this just ready, but you're still making, you know, good choices and you have stuff on hand. We all know that. Thanks, Roy. All right. So, oh, I've got one last question. Does straining yogurt shorten its fridge life? Thinking of straining the whole tub for future use.
Sorry, I'm crunching on pita, so I muted myself so that you didn't have to hear that loud crunching. So first of all, in this recipe, you use the whole tub. So you won't have any leftover for this recipe. But I haven't noticed that. What does affect the length of time is the herbs. So think about when you have fresh herbs and they're in the fridge, over time, they start to get a little bit soft and the flavor changes. So that's really, it's the ingredients that you add to the yogurt that will kind of shorten its life. So this yogurt, the container, I think was the end of July. So if I was just eating it, I would actually go into August still with the yogurt. And in this case, this is going to get eaten within about a week. So like this, it would be a week. So if you're just draining it and leaving it as plain yogurt, you can still look to the best before date on the package.
Okay, that's great. Well, listen, this has been another wonderful cooking demo. Just wanted to let everyone know. So for the summer, as of right now, this is kind of our last cooking demo. We'll have new ones in September. But if you're missing Emily and you're missing all these recipes, and we're going to show you that, we record all of them. And you can go back and watch them on the OC Replay webpage. You know how you get the email the next day with the link for the one that you've registered for? There's all kinds of webinars that you can go back to. And I just wanted to let Helen O'Hordinik, I'm sorry, I know I didn't say that correctly, from Toronto, who won the apron. So yay to Helen. I will reach out and we will get you that apron. I'm just going to share my screen right here really quickly. So we have some new recipes, some new ones with eggs and the Greek yogurt ones with the scones. And we've got some, you know, really great other recipes using more chickpeas and beef and shrimp and all kinds of things. So definitely check out the website, osteoporosis.ca/recipes. And we have the new nutrient calculator that I mentioned. You just go on the OC website. It's on the homepage. We also have podcasts you can listen to, blogs, and again, the OC replay webpage for anything that was previously recorded. And make sure you subscribe if you haven't, really easily. Just go to the homepage, top right-hand side, click that button so that you can get emails with notifications of new demos, new webinars, podcasts, and updates. Emily, thank you. It's okay. She's she's eating the salad. That's okay. You keep enjoying that.
It's
Everyone,
my
thank
lunch.
you. It's your lunch. I know, right? I'm gonna go have to make some now. Thank you to everyone for coming here today and watching us on another Cook with OC program. We hope you have a wonderful rest of July and August, and we look forward to seeing you in September. Take care and happy cooking, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Tracie.
Bye, Emily.
Bye.